Okay,
Welcome everybody to regularly scheduled meeting of the tree board. Day, January 21st. Greg Edwards, I'm the chair of the tree board. It's ourselves.
Annette Dodd.
I'm Karen Mary's daughter, member of the tree board.
Dominic Rizzo, member.
Ben Ruda, Steve Bangor, forestry manager.
Sophie Cameron, forest technician.
Jeff Davis, Director of Engineering.
We just met like 2 weeks ago for a workshop, so it feels weird being back so soon. Has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes of last meeting? Accept a motion to approve as written by Ben. Thanks.
So moved.
All right, favor. I don't know if we have the authority to vote or do anything, but we can attend. Forestry division. Want to go over them?
Sure. Fourth quarter, calendar year 2025. So far as quarters go, this was the busiest for forestry division as far as C6 requests. We had a windstorm mid-December, so that generated a lot of requests. Some of those requests are still pending because brush and debris that residents have put in is buried beneath the snow. So that's why they're still pending in C-Click Fix. As soon as the snow goes and either highway division or forestry division picks up that brush, then I'll close out those. Despite my small crew, we did 101 requests for that fourth quarter, which is quite a lot. Typically we're 60, 70, somewhere in that neighborhood. Preventive pruning. So just like planting and other things we're doing, we're kind of formalizing how we are doing work in forestry. And with that, I go out, I identify corridors, streets that need pruning, and we do an entire length of a street, end to end, intersection to intersection. During this fourth quarter, we did Ohio Street, the southern end, out towards from downtown to 14th Street extension, Warren, Yale, Patton, Walker, Sydney, March, Cattell, and Crosby. A little over 9 miles of roads, pruned, sidewalk, and street. So, tree removals. Didn't have too many in this fourth quarter. Most of them, one that we removed, Abraham Lincoln School, was a failure due to that storm. That was a medium-sized Norway maple that actually fell on 2 teachers' vehicles, caused property damage, and so we removed them. Another was on Hayward Street, unrelated, no storm damage. It was just a declining ash tree that had a broken upper canopy, and so that one came down. Contractor, during the fourth quarter, no trees were removed by the contractor. However, we have been given a list to start with based on our inventory we completed in 2024. All the trees that were marked as 0, which means dead, they will be removing them. Still trying to find the fine line between trees that need to get contracted for that and then trees that my division can do. But those look like 61 total trees based on the inventory inputs.
61 for the contractors to remove. Or just total.
61 total, yeah, to be split up. Planting, fourth quarter planting. So that was after our last meeting in October. We planted 33 trees along those corridors that I spoke about. After planting season, we were able to purchase at a deep discount 44 trees. Those 44 trees are now stored in the ground in pots over at Finson Nursery. And those will get outplanted as soon as spring rolls around and we kind of get some good growing stock, growing conditions. We also purchased in preparation for spring planting 45 bare root trees from a nursery in upstate New York that will get shipped here.
Can I provide clarification on that? So we're gonna put them in the gravel beds that we're building at Finson Nursery to keep them through the summer, but then we're planting them out on streets in the fall.
What was the name of the nursery?
Schitschels.
They, we spoke to Maine Audubon too recently, because we're doing Vincent is funded through a grant through them and Project Canopy, and they like shitstols. They use them a lot.
Yeah, that's pretty much for the division by numbers for fourth quarter.
I just have a quick question. When you go out and do pruning, I assume that there's a height limitation that you could just go to. So do you find that you're not able to do as good a job because you can't reach certain areas that are,
We have a bucket truck
oh, you do?
at forestry,
Okay.
that'll do 75 feet.
Mhm.
So typically we're able to get anything that's real problematic or within limiting distance to power lines that is either contracted out or actually completed by the utilities. And that's what they use. I think now it is Davy Tree, I think, potentially.
I've seen them around.
They're a Versant's contractor and they run around and do all the power line pruning.
Right, okay, great. That's not a recent addition, the bucket. truck, is it?
No,
Okay.
we've always had a bucket truck. We got a new purchase of a bucket truck in 2023, I think.
I guess the only reason why I'm asking, as a resident, when I called to have the street trees pruned, they could only get so far. They were like hopping on trucks and things like,
Yep.
doing that. They couldn't get
Mhm.
up to what other things that needed to be
Yeah.
pruned. So
Okay.
just wanted to note that.
Yep.
Thanks.
It is an 8-foot clearance over sidewalks, so we only have to prune up to clear 8 feet on the sidewalk side, and then it's 14 feet on the road side.
Okay, so if there are dead branches above that.
Yeah.
Then they're gonna stay there until they fall.
Nope.
If they're,
We'll speak.
if they're hazardous, we will deal with it.
And I don't mean to give you a hard time, but that's what I thought. I've
Yeah,
heard.
yep.
Okay,
I think when Ben talks about like the routine corridor pruning though, it's just to maintain that 8-foot,
Okay,
14-foot.
sure. I see.
Yeah.
I get it. Thanks.
Okay, staffing update. Yes, we have more staff?
So this is one of the negative items. in the-
Okay,
So forestry division staffing. We'll start with the positive spin. So Sophia Cameron, is a joint employment. So Sophia Cameron was offered a full-time position with forestry division. She has accepted it. It is a shared position with Parks and Recreation. So she will be writing Parks and Recreation, forest management plans, other projects as Tracy and Deb see fit, under her position, and then we'll handle the back end payroll as needed. She is a full-time employee.
Happy to be here.
She's really picked up the logistics of urban forest management plan, organizing everything, and things of that nature. On the downside, B, Arborist 1, Arborist 2, and HEO 1, as you all know, for quite a while, we have not had an Arborist 1 position filled at the forestry division. We previously had a HEO 1 individual,
What's HEO1?
heavy equipment operator. That heavy equipment operator was offered Arborist 1 position. They could not fulfill per the collective bargaining agreement, the licensing and certain standards for that position. They were knocked back down to HEO1 position. That lasted for about 8-9 months, something like that. And then just recently, they left Public Works for other employment. So now Forestry Division is myself and one heavy equipment operator. With that being said, the new Public Works Director and I are working on creating job postings, and we're going to be hiring outside of the normal hiring times to fill those vacancies. Typically, they wanted to have a bulk hiring event and then, fill vacancies as they saw fit. But now we're just going to have a HEO1 position posted specifically for Forestry Division, and then still have the Arborist 1 position posted like we had in the past, because that vacancy is there. So.
Okay. We'll keep our hopes up.
Hmm.
Yeah,
This is like the issue, so I mean, for as long as I have been forever, so
I feel hopeful now that we have a director.
it's a good start.
Yeah, that things will move in the right direction.
absolutely.
Okay. What was the piece on forestry tech? That's Sophie.
Yes.
That's my role.
Okay, cool. Urban forestry management plan workshop review. So we met like 2 weeks ago to go over the community engagement survey and website layout.
We have Sarah on.
Yeah. Can you have Sarah? Do we?
We do our opinions.
Okay. Sarah and Sophie and Ben have been working more diligently than I on updating all of those based on the workshop. And I sent out a link with I guess it's a live version of the form that will eventually be going out once it's finalized. The website layout is more like a Word document that will go on the website. Are there any comments on that? Or do you want to go over the updates that you and Sarah have made?
Sure. Sarah, I don't know if hi, Sarah.
We don't
Hi.
Line by line. It's like-
Do you want to go first, or I can talk about the meeting I had with Dave about the webpage?
Sure, that would be good to cover.
Okay. So Ben and I got a chance to sit down with Dave Warren to kind of come up with a more solid plan about webpage specifically. It is going to actually be hosted through the Forestry Division webpage. I know before we said that it would be hosted externally. That was a miscommunication. But we spoke with him and he thinks, we're gonna obviously put it before the IC committee tonight because we don't want to surprise them with anything. But as long as you guys don't have any adjustments to make to the language or anything at this point, he said it can be built and ready to go as early as either the end of this week or the beginning of next week. At that point, Ben, myself, and Sarah will sit down and kind of go through it and talk to him and make tweaks. And then hopefully by the end of the month, we'll have a social media post that goes out to announce that it's open and hopefully start getting engagement. And again, like as long as the survey doesn't get any comments from you guys tonight, and we don't find any other edits to make through the infrastructure committee meeting, that will be ready to hopefully go live by the end of the month as well. So those things will kind of line up in terms of announcement stuff. And we did clarify that we are allowed to use the alert system.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we just can't do it very much. So Sarah and I were talking and we're gonna prioritize certain things that we put out.
Yeah, that makes
About
sense.
trees.
Yeah. Did I miss anything? Okay, that's my update.
I have a question, just a confusion. It seems to me that at the workshop, maybe somebody said we already have had a tree canopy assessment done for Bangor. Am I confused there?
Sarah?
A tree canopy, sorry. I was like searching my memory. Have you? We are currently completing one.
Okay.
So
I think
that will
Sarah
be-
went over the preliminary findings of that.
Okay, because I remember you were showing something on the screen, Sarah, but then when I followed the link, it was just generic tree canopy information. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so we are completing one right now. And yes, Sophie, like you mentioned, I shared some information from that at the last tree board meeting. And that will be included in the urban forest management plan.
Cool.
Well, I'll just say I was happy with the changes I saw from the workshop. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if anyone, I mean, within the next day, spends some time looking it over and has last minute adjustments, just let Ben know. Get it squared away before we put everything out into the universe.
Okay. Cool. All right, moving on to forestry division projects. Something new I did. I knew we had a red scale plan solid, and we had a response plan, so.
So as part of Sophie's employment here, her and I have worked in tandem with Parks and Rec and other landholders in the city, be it community economic development, Bangor High School, in coming up with a plan for red pine scale. What red pine scale is a very small insect that infests red pine trees, takes the nutrients from the tree, and then causes severe and very rapid decline in red pine trees. If you go out for its MDI, there is not one standing red pine tree left on the entire island. This is moving now with predominant winds across through like Cherryfield and then up through the Route 9 corridor, spreading pretty rapidly from MDI thanks to the predominant winds that carry it. We're making preventive measures by having this plan written to identify areas within the city that have pure red pine stands. Those were planted for site remediation, reforestation efforts by Roland Perry. And that's just one of the issues in dealing with a monoculture is having an insect go through and specifically target one species. And now we have a whole forest stand at risk of complete and utter failure just because of that monoculture. So Sophie has written a plan and we're looking to bring it to infrastructure with the get approval.
There's a good map of locations of red pine scale in the state. It's on page 9. That's put together by Bill May at the Marine Forest Service. We've been in touch with him. He's kind of local to the Bangor area. I think he's up in Old Town. So he also gets eyes on red pine around the area quite often. So hopefully we'll be able to catch this pretty quickly if it does come in to Bangor. Things to highlight. Like Ben said, we have quite a few of these plantations. There are maps of each of them throughout here. So one of the larger ones of note is behind the high school, next to Prentice Woods. There's a smaller one in Essex Woods that is, we actually kind of got started on working on that. A lot of the issues that are going to arise from this are sort of post-mortality of red pine because these trees are planted in places they weren't supposed to be in the first place. They were just kind of en masse put out, which was typical of that time period as a way to do kind of reforestation efforts. But because of that, not a lot of things are growing up underneath these trees. So what we did at Essex Woods was an initial mechanical removal of invasive woody plants that we found there. We got about 50% of that plantation done this past fall. And we will be using integrated pest management strategies to continue to manage any invasives that are under these stands, because the issue that arises is when these trees start to die, they create gaps for light to hit the forest floor, which then they take off and then they're out of control. So we're doing this kind of as a 3-stage intervention strategy where we're first dealing with the invasives, getting those under our belt. Then we're going in and we're removing the already dead trees that have died of other causes, or the trees that are just considered to be the losers, the ones that haven't grown very well, they're stunted. They've been affected by other diseases. In Winterport Pit specifically, there's a porcupine issue. So there are a lot of them that have been taken out by porcupines. And then we'll hopefully be able to hang on for a few more years before red pine scale comes into the city or into Winterport, where we also have a property. And they will be able to continue to grow for that period of time, but eventually it is a large scale removal of these trees, just to prevent safety issues and also capture any value that they may have. And that'll all be performed as a combination of through Ben and whoever we bring on in the next couple of months, and then also contracted folks. And that's the gist, but I would encourage you to read through this. There's there's no way to treat them in a forested setting, unfortunately, so it's not as overarching as the EAB plan.
Is there a way to treat them as like specimen trees?
Yeah, if you have one that's small enough, because a lot of people get those like ornamental red pines, dwarf red pines, I think is, I don't know what the actual horticultural term is, but you can spray horticultural oil, which I think is just neem oil, right, over them, and you do that twice a year to match up with the hatch of the insect. And that provides pretty good control, but as you can imagine, in a forested setting with 50 to 80 foot tall trees, that's not really a viable option, unfortunately.
And no, there's no like intravenous, like.
No, unfortunately not. That would require, I don't think there's a ton of research on it, and also I don't think
They're not eating the tree,
they essentially just latch on to the venous tissue on the exterior of the stem, and they don't bore through the wood. So I don't think they're able to like really suck up enough material to be effective. I haven't done a ton of research into it. I just talked to the folks at the Maine Forest Service, and they're like, it's kind of a wash, unfortunately.
here's to figure out.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, they don't, yeah, because red pine wood is not as big of a firewood product. And also because oftentimes the branches get bucked off and left in the woods, there's not as much spread through like human modes of transportation. So a lot of it is wind-based. So for that reason, it is slower moving than EAB.
This could be used for lumber.
Yeah, if they're big enough. I don't know that we have very many that are big enough. Some of the ones in Prentice, I think, yeah.
The mechanical removal you were doing of invasives, is that just going out and chopping down?
Yeah.
Whatever's.
Yep,
there?
yeah. If you go over to Essex Woods, you'll see like a bunch of multicolored little pieces of flagging throughout there. That was me going around and flagging the trees we wanted to keep. And then everything else was either taken down with like what is that tool
It's
called?
a prop saw.
Yeah.
Spacing, so obviously a weed whacker with the saw blade.
Yeah. And then, or like I had pruners that I was going around and just chopping things off, but.
Any plan to
Labor
also-
intensive.
Yeah, any plan to also use herbicide?
That's part of the IPM strategy. We're gonna see this spring how what we already took down grows back. Likely we'll be using herbicide in the fall. But that's always gonna be in conjunction with continued mechanical removal. Just because we wanna be conservative.
Yes. It's just usually when you cut down a stem, you get like 8 little stems
Yeah.
and it becomes harder to.
So what that would be is we would do a basil bark
Yep.
application, which is just like a little, it's almost like a dauber, like it looks like a bingo thing. And you just apply it with a little bit of dye so you can see the stumps that you've hit. So that's the current plan.
Okay. Cool.
And is this
Not bad
something,
news, but good news.
yeah, but is this something that has happened before and it's on a cyclical basis, or is this something new for this
It's an
part of the
invasive
country?
insect. It's from Asia. It was first introduced into, I believe, New York through the World's Fair, on ornamental introductions. That's the thought anyway. When it was introduced in New York, they don't have as large of continuous populations of red pine as there is in like northern New England. So I think it kind of spread across New York a bit. It was in Connecticut. Connecticut had a heck of a time with it for a while. And it's newer to us. I don't recall hearing about it until like 2020 in Bar Harbor. Yeah. So yeah, isn't something we've dealt with before.
Need to stop importing plants.
Yeah.
Okay, city forest wildfire management, mitigation.
So, forestry division has had a contractor in the city forest completing a step, budgeted now to do wildfire mitigation along the main roads. This was all in conjunction to follow the management plan written by David Irving. And this essentially is removing the overstocked softwood and hardwood trees along roads within the city forest. And what this does is it creates a fire break. If anybody was to be smoking a cigarette and they were to toss it off the edge of the road, it's not going to go into the stand of highly flammable million trees per acre of fir. There's going to be a bit of a gap before the forest edge. So a little bit of a fire break there. So there's a map on the last page. During this entry, the contractor was able to go from the Trick Drive parking area all the way to the easy railroad bed. All thick, dense sections of the roads have been thinned out. Everything has been blown back into the woods, so all the nutrients are staying in the woods and spread out on a fine layer. And you can kind of expect to see regrowth in the summertime. It's probably going to revert back to grasses and other, hardwood suckers, just like you mentioned earlier. But this is kind of a long-term thing. It's looking like at this progress, it might take 3 years to do all the forest roads.
Are they paying any special attention to invasives they see along those as they're in there?
Sophie and the other interns have already mapped the invasives that are noted. And then in follow-up in sprouting this spring, we'll be able to see basically invasive sprout first. So whatever greens up first is likely buckthorn, and most of the invasive species are found along the roads due to contaminated fill and things of that nature. But there really isn't too much in there. If you go to some of the landings and storage areas where Park and Rec and Forestry keep grindings and stuff like that, that's where most of the invasives are. So. And this is almost 2 miles of roads that we're able to get in a few weeks' time.
So this was the first year of 3 years.
Yes, yep, I'm anticipating it. And each road is different based on the density and how much they have to actually cut. So.
Questions? EAB injections.
Yeah,
We're doing 500 trees this spring.
400 and some,
that's what we are aiming for.
127, I believe.
Mhm. Yeah, so we are looking and gearing up. Both Sophie and I have our outdoor ornamental pesticide tests under our belt. I need to pass Masters pesticide for this. So I've been studying for that exam. And then as a backup, our cemetery sexton, who was already a master pesticide applicator, will be testing in February for outdoor ornamental, just in the rare case that due to scheduling, I've missed the window for exam and injection time. So we'll have that as a backup to keep all injections in-house without going through a contractor to save on the contracted costs. Since we already have a labor account and it would just be material that we would have to fund.
So you will see a lot more blue dots pop up around April.
It'd be great if we had some sort of informational things to put out at the same time.
We do have, I made up signs last year. I think the issue was how long ahead of it do we put them out?
Right.
Because they do tend to disappear. So, but we do have to post before we do anything.
Yeah, that's true.
So that was kind of our way of doing that, but I am thinking about how we can improve that system moving forward.
If they were 8.5 by 11 like laminated sheets and somehow attached to.
That's
something
what we
other-
kind of did. It was like a stake but
The stakes are super easy. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's such
Yeah.
a little surface area attached.
yeah, so I think we're gonna come up with a better plan. Whether it be like posting for a full park in just like one location that's like more prominent, or, cause where we need to post is like places that are often accessed by people, so like if it's out behind at the back of the cemetery or something, like less so that people are gonna be seeing it, but yeah, we're gonna try to come up with a better system. If you brainstorm and wanna give me ideas, that would be helpful.
Well, I went and looked over your whole EAB section again. I hadn't looked in a while and it's excellent. I think you've really enhanced it a lot. And I was especially impressed with this private ash treatment guide you got from, is it Maine Forest Service or somebody? Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought that was very good.
they're a really good resource for anybody that wants to ask questions
Yeah.
about that kind of stuff. Allison Canody she's an invaluable resource around this kind of stuff.
And the list of pesticide applicators, although it's alphabetical by the name of the company, it'd be
Yeah.
nice if it was by town.
Yeah.
But still, it's great that that link is there. I did notice this wording somewhere. It said, helping to develop community-wide set of instructions on how to manage EAB on private property. So is that something that's in the works or?
That was language developed while Aaron was still here. I think before he departed, there was an intention for him to speak to folks here in City Hall to sort of sort out some solutions. There was talk about like possibly looking at grant funding for low-income neighborhoods. I think that might have fallen off the radar at some point. I think there's every intention to still do that. But yeah, we got caught up in figuring out our piece of things, and we kind of lost the person spearheading the private side of stuff. So I do think that'll come back at some point. It's just a matter of capacity at this point.
Sounds like a good use of community block grant funds if it's.
That
targeted.
was, I think, the thought
Yeah.
initially.
So when you say low-income neighborhoods, that there might be financial help for people?
There was thought that because it poses a safety hazard, and low-income neighborhoods may not be able to properly deal with that issue on their own because of financial reasons, that there could be that avenue to explore grant funding. I don't know that we ever came up or brainstormed any ideas around non-low-income neighborhoods, aside from possibly helping to facilitate community interaction to figure out like a neighborhood-wide solution independently from public works.
Well, Angry Beautiful, we were talking about ways to get the word out to people who have their own ash trees and sending them to the website, I think now would be,
Yeah.
that's what we'd wanna do is figure out a way
Yeah.
to get information out to people so they'll go to that website.
Yeah,
Find out, that's separate from financial incentives, but just a sort of a public awareness.
yeah, totally. I think too, it's obviously going to be a much larger footprint of the number of trees that we're treating come spring. And I think that's going to mean that we do another round of like public engagement stuff around it. So that will help as well. And then also, as you guys communicate to people, I mean, Ben and I are always willing to answer questions. So if people want to call and talk about it, we can point them in the right direction of how to get resources for stuff like this.
And so who would be, if, to go back to the plan that Aaron had put energy into, who would be following up on that? Would that be you all? Would that be some committee of the council? Who would-
Correct me if I'm wrong, I would imagine that would be an idea we would have to take to the new public works director, and then he would work with the other departments, specifically like planning and I don't know if it would be community and economic development, but kind of the folks in this building to figure that out. That would be more of a community development side of things than a forestry side of things.
Community development right now has programs for
Yeah.
different, people inside the city of Bangor who qualify can apply for grants for different things to
Yeah.
improve their private property if it improves a low income area. So it could be, that could be just another program that someone could apply for.
Yeah.
For grant funding.
And I think maybe an opportunity once we move into this new phase is to reintroduce that idea to the new public works director and explore how we can get that shuffled along.
And is there somebody in community development that it makes sense to be the point person there to talk to?
You'd know better than I would.
I imagine my go-to is typically Anne, and then she defers to whoever has like project opening or oversight over certain things.
Last I heard they were fully staffed, so
Yes.
there's probably people in the ranks that
Mhm.
that manage programs like that.
And there are, and I'm trying to think of her name, but there is a specific person.
Yeah. Yeah, cause that would be an excellent resource for people,
Yeah,
cause it's gonna be an expensive proposition for people to deal with their ash trees.
absolutely. I do wonder if there's a lack of urgency at this time because we don't have the insect in the city and that there might be prioritization of those funds for use elsewhere. So that is also a question to ask.
It might be good if people, at least it's on their radar, because when it does show up in the city, then they'll need to be,
Yeah,
in terms of grant lead time, it's gonna be a short period of time before people are gonna need help.
And we get the conversation started now.
Yeah, get the conversation started now.
That funding is supposed to be helping low-income neighborhoods in general, so if we're using it to save the ash trees in their parks.
Mhm.
Like if you look around Cape Heart, it's mostly ash trees.
Oh, there's a couple of streets that are all ash
Exactly.
trees. Yes.
And most of those are city trees.
Mhm.
And I know funding the herbicide is gonna be a piece of what you guys will have to do.
yeah, I think now that we're in-house, we're gonna see how this next year goes. We did lower the injection volume from what the original estimate was going to be because of new research that came out. Not new, but research that we found that was new to us, suggesting that we could do that. So, I mean, we're gonna see how far we can get on our own budget. And then from there, that'll kind of inform the requests we make into the future about what we need specifically for this. But I think we do anticipate all of the public trees being covered by like our funding as opposed to trying to seek out grants for that. Just because it did seem like the city councilors were on board, and I think everyone here is aligned with how we're going to approach this. Yeah,
That's hopeful. I was terrified when we first were like, we're gonna treat 1,000 trees, and I'm like, we can't even plant like 50 trees.
I mean,
in a
when you look
year.
at the numbers, it saves them a lot of money in the long
I
run
know. Yeah.
to do it this way.
We also just didn't have a lot of people who were certified to do
Yeah.
injections.
Yeah,
So
totally.
that's a scary unknown, but now that we have both of you well-trained.
Gonna be fun. It's gonna be like 3 straight weeks of.
Cool. Any other questions on EAB before we move on? Okay. Bangor Beautiful, spring tree. Don't shine.
Get your donation.
We purchased them, from different places.
Okay.
Sourcing has been, we've only been doing this like 3 years, but sourcing has been a little difficult. Like Sprague sells, cultivars of some of the natives. Maine Audubon still sells straight species, but they're tiny. So I wanna do Main Street, and, my plan was to do slightly look, cause the last planting we did was all for Maine Audubon, and they were very tiny, and you know, I don't know how well they're gonna do right out there in the middle of Broadway. These on Main Street have a history of being wiped out by snowplows and stuff.
Yeah.
Cause this was all planted as part of Main Street's renovation like 10-15 years ago, and all the trees that were called for, most of them are gone on this section. So my thought was to do, you know, number 10, number 15 sized pots, which will be bigger trees, will be 6-8 feet tall. And do mostly red maples and oaks, and a couple service areas where there are overhead issues, like just a traffic light. There are no overhead power lines through there. My other thought was, because some of these were set up with beds in place, and they actually have like granite cobblestone borders, was flanking the trees on either side with low grow fragrant sumac that gets like that tall, and to hopefully help protect the trees from, I don't know, anything. Keep the soil a little more pervious, and maybe present some sort of sign to as they're plowing or doing snow removals.
This isn't the one that kind of grows out, is it?
Think so. I think it's like very,
I know there's like a ground cover one that doesn't get super tall, but it does go crazy.
okay. I think it's that one, but I don't know how crazy it gets. I've seen it.
Okay.
I was gonna print a picture of it. There's a really good picture of it being planted with red maples in a parking lot island, and it, you know, it stays contained in that island.
Yeah. They're one of my favorite shrubs. If we're talking about the same thing,
Yeah.
I just wonder about foot traffic.
Right. The sidewalks through there are like 10 feet,
Okay.
at least 10 feet wide. Like it's almost a multi-use trail. So I don't think it would be a problem.
Yeah.
So my thought was planting, you know, 2 on either side, and then hopefully that will, I don't know, reinforce, because a tree out on its own, like there's
Yeah.
no protection from snowbanks and stuff. Whereas if there was some sort of ground cover and something there,
Yeah.
it might give it a little protection.
Ben and I also did have a conversation with Betsy Lundy about downtown specifically, and trying to figure out like possibly temporary blockades for protection. So I think when we flesh that idea out a little bit more, we can touch base with you and possibly
Yeah,
loop you into that.
especially during winter. Like,
Yeah,
I've seen in New York City, they like build wooden cages around the trees.
I've seen that too.
I mean, it's pretty effective,
Yeah,
but
and
it's a lot of work.
that's something we've proposed at one point or another for like when paving is going by to protect things.
Yes. And then Belfast does like they build like a little wooden wall around it that's there permanently, to keep dogs and foot traffic
Yeah.
from stepping directly in the
Yeah.
tree wells. The last time that was proposed, they're worried about it getting eaten up by big snow removal machines.
Yeah,
And then another thing that works really well are just granite curbing, which Jefferson's done some of through West Market Square
yeah,
to like create some sort of physical barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the work they're gonna be doing downtown doesn't go out Main Street at all?
You mean the why?
No, I mean, there's that whole plan to redo downtown.
Village partnership.
Thank you, Village Partnership.
I don't think it does. I think it stops at Cedar Street. I
Mhm.
also,
That.
it's gonna be piecemeal, so it's, you know, this is, I don't think this is on the
They
radar.
also
Okay,
tend to
'cause I
work
just-
around existing trees, so if you plant something, whoever does it is kind of required to be careful. That actually works out really well, and I don't think we planned this.
I think you mentioned that, because like, there's so much room on Main Street.
Well, yeah, so we're going, our spring, is it spring or fall? I will check and let you know, either spring or fall, we are planting between Cedar and Barker Street. And then up onto First Street,
Mhm.
and then First Street across Davenport to Union, the back of Davenport.
No, that,
And I think we're also putting like 3 trees in Davenport Park. So,
cool. There are 13 red oaks and maples, and I was just gonna alternate them. And 3 service berries, so 16 trees. I'll work on sourcing and get numbers for our next meeting, so that, this is a little more, I just wanted to get something in front of us.
is it full sun on that part of Main Street?
It is,
Little shade.
you can see the north,
Could that be solved with pruning?
parts of it are very sunny, parts of it are shaded by large trees.
I would urge you to put the oaks in the sunnier spots. They don't love shade.
I felt like it was pretty sunny when I was out.
Yeah.
there. I'm not
I think
gonna
it
lie.
depends on the time of day.
Of year, time of day,
Yeah.
it's very hot.
It's
very
pretty
sunny.
open, yeah, it's pretty hot.
Right, it's
I've walked it.
the east side has all of the western sun exposure.
Yeah.
And it's like southwest facing.
Yeah.
So southwest sun coming in. So it should be pretty bright.
I mean, you can see there are 3 big.
Yeah, there definitely were a
Right,
few
and
really
there's shade
shady
up there.
spots. And but it's hard to know how long those trees will be there.
This,
Do you know what kind of trees those are, the ones that are the
I
big
know
ones?
one of them's a Norway maple, cause
I think
Most of those
yeah.
are Norway maples.
it's a little
So
volunteer.
The
Norway
retaining
maple
wall
for
kind
it.
of drops down,
Mhm.
the concert venue.
we had to cut a branch when we were, cause the panels are right there, and one of the panels was like, there was a tree limb like hanging over the fence and on.
Mhm.
Since it wasn't a city, well, it's technically a city tree, cause that's city property over there.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Oh, hell.
Yeah, so that's the plan for spring. I'll come back next meeting with numbers and I did originally map that out with the underground utilities. There's almost nothing except for some stormwater on that side and electrical.
Mhm.
But the electrical is just running between the
Yeah.
poles.
Yeah.
The light poles.
And you wanna use that method, the Stockholm method of building the box
We could
underground?
contract the digging crew for an entire week. We could certainly do that.
Yeah.
I think we'd be hard pressed to do
Maybe we
that.
could do a pilot project.
What if we just drilled lots of holes in the asphalt in the sidewalk there, so water could get down and air could get down through?
Well, there's the permeable surfaces now, which,
That would require removing all the asphalt,
yes, right.
installing a permeable like
Mhm.
undersurface and then paving with permeable, yeah, it's
Someday.
it makes sense in
Someday.
dense urban areas like
Yeah.
downtown, if we used any of the, like, cause there's that whole like TIF funding, like,
Mhm.
you know. We'd used the money we spent on heated sidewalks on building amazing tree bases, we could have really great trees,
Right.
as opposed to unheated sidewalks. That's it. Yeah. Any new business? Yeah,
Well, I mean, I think you kind of touched on it about when sidewalks are redone and doing things in a better way, that'll overall be good for a lot of reasons. Are we going to at some point discuss things like that, or, you know, as far as the tree canopy assessment, but like areas that we know putting trees will obviously help, but when you don't have an area planting, plant something that's wide enough, I mean, do we ever start to talk about infrastructure where maybe the sidewalks don't have to be 5 feet in a particular
Those are
location because.
conversations.
I mean, but are we gonna talk about things like that?
We've started with the new director. Looking at certain projects that other locations do, be it pavement removal, a shared streets concept, where pedestrians, bicycle traffic share streets with vehicles
Yeah.
versus sandwiching 2 sidewalks into an area where
I
they
thought of that
fit.
recently.
Based on traffic volume, and that's all engineering and city question, but we've begun the the conversations as far as looking at our right of ways based on the traffic volume. Do we actually need right of ways and pavement that big in certain areas? So,
I mean, I think we've all seen trees that are either like the roots are cut right down or, you know, they were gonna take my green space. I had to fight for my.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And, you know, looking at areas like Maple Street and West Broadway, it's 2 lanes of traffic. It's the same
And what happened?
dimension as Union Street, all 4 lanes. It's 50 feet.
Hmm.
There's 2 lanes of traffic.
So the discussion will start with you guys,
We're working on it.
and will it make its way to this?
We
Committee
feel,
or-
yeah, I think once projects are actually in motion, which could take some time, just because they've been doing things a certain way for a very long time, and trying to incite change is hard. But it's on the top of mind, and especially now that we're revisiting how we do plantings, I think it's going to be a conversation that keeps coming up. I personally am feeling very passionate about it, so.
And I know this past fall, I think it was, or whenever it was, that you sent me some information. A number of our neighbors were concerned about trees being taken down on Center Street, but it's part of a main DOT project. And some of the people were just thinking, you mean the tree board or the city has no say over taking trees down, or, I mean, or your group in general? Once I mentioned on the page that I was on the committee, I think it's strange that the committee, the tree board, doesn't have a say on this.
And
So I'm
that,
just,
DOT projects, you mean?
the deal,
Yeah,
yeah.
or Versant, I assume that's also an issue with Versant.
yep, as far as DOT projects, I think city approval for that particular project goes all the way back to, I think, 2016. So I think they went through the process and did like the structure modifications, and that whole intersection plan was approved in 2016. So like 10 years ago when I started looking at
That was before I moved here.
some of that has gone through the appropriate channels, just not briefly.
But if I recall too, when we were doing our last, and I can look back at my notes, when we were doing our last urban forest management plan, like group meeting, I think we mentioned to Sarah that one of the priorities of the UFMP is to like create a system of communication, not necessarily for DOT or Versant, but like for engineering. Like it becomes more of a conversation as opposed to these things have to come down.
right.
It's kind of a question of where it lives, because like there ought to be some best practices for how we're installing trees.
And I
But
think
it also
that,
needs to cohabitate with how we build sidewalks and roads.
yeah,
And I
And
know,
put in natural gas lines.
Right.
All-
and I know Jefferson's working on a complete streets plan. I'm wondering if it almost needs to like be referenced in that some way, because you know, if you have a street with really good tree canopy and like buffers from traffic, you have a complete street. Like it achieves that same goal.
yeah. So we have a meeting on Monday. That would be a great thing to bring up while Jefferson and all of us are in there.
For the urban forestry management. I remember
at 1 o'clock. I didn't until yesterday.
Yeah, just being on the tree board and then watching the natural gas line go in and right through the roots of both the ash trees on the front of our property. You know, they're just a short distance from that tree. They had to be chopping out a lot of roots. And it's like, wait a minute, doesn't anybody have a say over what's happening to these trees? Hopefully.
Communication.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
Okay. Anything else? Alright,
Very efficient.
we're done early.
Thank you for running a good meeting.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, everyone. Speak to you on Monday.